Good morning, and welcome to another edition of Coffee with Curare. We're here, it's mid-March, and this is another edition of March Madness Coffee with Curare. We're celebrating today some of the teams in the Sweet 16, communities they're located in, and or the states they're located in. We're going to be talking about some opportunities in those areas, physician friendliness of the overall environment, and maybe a little side chat on the side. So
yeah.
Hang on tight, Ian's going to get us started.
Sure, so I'm really excited about the matchups starting this evening, Sweet 16 games. In particular, based on my own bracket, I'm really excited to see the matchup between Gonzaga and Florida State, which brings me to one of the first areas I wanted to talk about, which is Spokane, Washington. Really beautiful location on the eastern side of the state, not that far from the border of Idaho. Spokane is really kind of Spokane, rather. You can tell I'm not from there.
I've actually had people tell me it's definitely not Spokane, Jerry. You're not from here.
Right, it's Spokane. Same thing with if you say Louisville, you're not from Louisville.
What about Illinois?
Arkansas?
Arkansas?
I think we're getting a little off track.
This is some of that side chatter we're referring to.
But Spokane, really, really beautiful area. And a relatively small town, but it kind of gives you the best of both worlds because it is a college town. Now, Gonzaga University, based there, doesn't have a huge population when compared to some other universities that we might be talking about here later. They've got around 8,000 students. But there's all sorts of really great stuff to do there in Spokane. It's maybe 3.5 hours from Seattle, but really an outdoors paradise there. Great. They've got a great river walk, which is a 100-acre park that they have right in the middle of Spokane. There's a waterfall, there's a hand-carved carousel, and all sorts of fun little shops and restaurants. They've got a great downtown area too. It's a really wonderful place to live. Interesting thing about Gonzaga's basketball team is perennially they're one of the best teams in the country. It seems like they always have a knack for winning tough games and good matchups. This matchup tonight is going to be really, really interesting because they've got a guy who's projected to go fourth in the NBA draft. His name, let me make sure I get this correct, is Rui Hachimura. But then they also have another player named Brandon Clark, who, and I was talking to you about this earlier today, Jerry, has accomplished something in this season of college basketball that they're saying has never been done before. He has more blocked shots than missed shots on the season. Pretty incredible stat. But in terms of the opportunities we've got there, we have right now about 15 positions in and around Spokane, including a neurohospitalist job, nephrology, outpatient internal medicine, medical oncology, just to name a few. And what I'll leave you with, and I'm going to talk about this in the next community as well, but notable Gonzaga alumni, I found John Stockton is a Gonzaga alum, as well as Bing Crosby.
Didn't know that.
Famous crooner. So I'll turn it over to you, Jerry. What location are you talking about?
I'm disappointed. That's going to be a tough one to follow, and you came prepared this morning. I'm talking about Michigan right now as a whole. Michigan is a state that looks like a mitten. Is that there's two teams in the NCAA tournament still from Michigan. There's one of three states that have two teams left in the tournament right now, Virginia and North Carolina being the others. Of course, being Hoosiers that we are, we're pulling heavy for the Big Ten teams, which are Purdue, Michigan State, and Michigan. Today, in Michigan as a whole, I want to talk about, because Michigan is a state that over the last 3 to 5 years has become very physician friendly. A lot of good jobs up there. The tax base is not that high. The cost of living is pretty low throughout most of the state, with the exception being Ann Arbor and some of the really high-end Detroit suburbs. But hey, good news for you is that Ann Arbor and the high-end Detroit suburbs are very saturated. If you were going to take Michigan as a whole, those are probably the two worst job markets in the whole state. And they're some of the most desirable areas to live, but if you look at Michigan as a whole, they've got all kinds of great places to live. Down in the southwestern corner, they've got Benton Harbor, St. Joseph, which is a great health system down there with a lot of opportunities for growth right now. The thing about Benton Harbor, St. Joseph is it's actually close enough to Chicago that people commute all the way to Chicago for their daily job from Benton Harbor, St. Joe.
Wow.
They could drive down to South Bend and get on the South Shore train and take a train right into town. So a lot of people actually do that from as far away as Southwest Michigan. It's crazy to think about, but it happens all the time over there. Then moving up the coast, you've got South Haven, Muskegon, Traverse City. Those are all great tourist destinations, but have thriving local economies that make it a great place to be a physician. Holland's another place. And then your bigger cities of Grand Rapids and East Lansing and Lansing, Michigan, really great locations. And then as you move further up the state, even in the UP, it's an outdoor person's paradise. You've got Marquette up there, you've got Copper Harbor. There's opportunities to be had where you could be a really big fish in a big lake, because Lake Michigan and Superior are right there.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, gotcha. But overall, Michigan is just a great place to live if you're into the outdoors at all. You have Lake Michigan, you've got a bunch of dunes, you've got all kinds of national forest property, both in the upper and lower peninsula. You've got Mackinac Island, you've got Sleeping Bear Dunes National Park over there. The UP has a numerous ski resorts that actually get powder that a lot of the western resorts are jealous of because of the lake effect snow. So if you haven't had Michigan on your radar and you don't mind a little bit longer winter season, a little bit cooler summers, you should really consider giving that state a glance in some of your time. We've got ample opportunities up there, primary care, all kinds of specialty jobs, so give that a thought. And as far as the games go, I think Michigan and Michigan State, shoot, they've got a great chance to go to the Final Four. I mean, Michigan has to get through Gonzaga or Florida State, so it's kind of interesting. And in the Curare pool, which we can't gamble, of course, because that would be illegal, so we all donated a jar of pickles for our entry fee. Winner takes all. It'll be pretty nice. It'll supply my spring pickle run. And I have Michigan in my Final Four, which could catapult me above you and David Bick.
It's possible. We don't know what's going to happen. But yeah, I've got, I do have the next team I'm talking about, the next area I'm talking about is in my Final Four, Florida State. So I've picked them to be victorious over Gonzaga tonight. We'll see what happens. But Florida State University is based in Tallahassee, and that is the capital of Florida. And funny enough, both of the locations that I selected, Washington State and Florida State, both have no state income tax. So both locations where, as a physician, when you're in the top 95th percentile of earners in the country, you're going to be keeping a little bit more in your pocket living in both of these states. But Tallahassee is a great city, population of over 200,000 people. Florida State University is really big, student population of over 40,000. So in stark contrast to Gonzaga, there's just about 8,000 students. However, Gonzaga is the one with the lottery pick, figure that. But in Tallahassee, really big metro area, great downtown. And what I think might surprise some people about Tallahassee is really how close it is to the Gulf of Mexico. You're only looking at maybe a 30-minute drive down to the Gulf. And then Tallahassee is also surrounded by an abundance of national parks. There's even a couple of really nice lakes and waterways that are maybe just 5 minutes from downtown in Tallahassee. So not only do you have kind of this bustling metropolitan area, but just a short drive away, you can be on the coast, you can be on the beach. So really a fun place to live. And again, we've got a lot of jobs. And right now, I think we have literally 10 jobs within only about 15 miles of Tallahassee. Just all sorts of different specialties, gastroenterology, invasive cardiology, pulmonary and critical care. So this is definitely a market to look at if you want to go to Florida. I think traditionally a lot of people, when they think about relocating to Florida, they're thinking Tampa, Orlando, Fort Lauderdale, Miami. Not that those aren't good places to live, but they are just saturated with physicians, really tough markets. Tallahassee would be a great change of pace from that, where you could really do very well for yourself. And again, have easy access to the coast and not have to deal with the same competition you're going to have down in Southeast Florida.
Yeah, and it's, Tallahassee is one of those areas that it's a gem. I mean, it's really a hidden gem in Florida, like Ocala. Nobody thinks about going to Ocala, but that place is awesome right now. Growing considerably, and a lot of the places that you mentioned earlier, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, Southeast Florida, they're tapped out. There's no more growth to be occurring except up, vertical growth. That's it. And I also heard in Tallahassee they have really good lobsters, which is kind of unique. I mean, Winston, the quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he was.
Jameis Winston.
Yeah, Jameis Winston. He loved the lobsters in Tallahassee.
I think it might have been crab.
Crab.
But yeah, there was. He's definitely a seafood aficionado.
Yes, crustians. Finally, I'm gonna wrap it around to Tennessee. A wise man once said, "There ain't no place I'd rather be." And I take those words seriously because Tennessee is a great state. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I think Tennessee is an income tax state for you.
It is.
Yeah,
state income tax.
I didn't do my homework on that, but look at that, 3 out of 4. Whereas Michigan, they'll tax the hell out of you. Really good schools up there because of it, though. But back down to Tennessee. Knoxville, Tennessee, of course, is where the University of Tennessee is, and Knoxville is a major metropolitan area.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to say it. I mean, it's not one of the top 10 largest in the country, but it's probably the top 25 if I had to guess right now. And it gives you awesome access to Atlanta, to Chattanooga, to Asheville, North Carolina, to Charlotte, North Carolina. I'd like to say Knoxville is really like right down there in the center of a huge populated area because it offers you such easy access in every direction to large cities.
You're right there by the mountains too.
Oh, and that's the next part. You're surrounded by lakes. There's Norris Lake. There's several huge lakes that folks could live on. The doctors obviously love to live on the water. Tons of golf courses. I mean, so many golf courses, some of which host PGA events and LPGA events. And then, of course, the Smoky Mountains just to the east. So you'll never run out of things to do in Knoxville. The cost of living for a metropolitan area is actually extremely cheap still. You could buy 3,000 square foot new construction homes for $250,000. If you're looking at those 5,000 square foot homes on the lake, you're still only paying $500,000 and you get a beautiful sunset every night. So job-wise, Eastern Tennessee is growing huge right now. Between Chattanooga, Knoxville, up to the Tri-City areas, there's so much growth occurring there right now that we've got jobs of all sorts in all directions in the Knoxville area. So if you're looking at any of these states or any of the states that are hosting Sweet 16 teams, you owe it to yourself to give us a call soon so we can get your search started right now, really. This month is the time to go to get you moved for the summertime.
It really is. Now is the time when we're seeing the matchups between physicians, all this competition for jobs. You got to try and respond quickly and make sure that you can move on to the next round of interviews and secure that contract.
Nice close, nice close. On that, we'll close and we'll see you next week. And by then, we'll know who the Final Four is. Keep in touch.